Well, a warm welcome along then to this Premier League Daily Bulletin, and we can't start anywhere else but arguably the biggest story of the season so far. Ole Gunnar Solskjær has been handed the Manchester United manager's job on a permanent basis, putting pen to paper on a 3-year contract at Old Trafford after a very impressive spell as interim boss. Chris, it's not a massive surprise that they've decided to stick with Solskjær. He's already targeting trophies. It's going to be interesting to see how he progresses from now.
Yeah, it certainly will be. Won 14 out of 19 matches as an interim manager, and then of course has now been handed the job, as you say, on a full-time basis. But the only realistic chance of silverware this season is the Champions League. And whilst they performed something of a miracle to get past Paris Saint-Germain in the last round, having lost at home, they've got Barcelona and a certain Lionel Messi in the next round of the competition. Very tough to see them winning silverware this season, but no matter what, I think it's still an improvement from what they had under Jose Mourinho. He's getting the best out of the likes of Paul Pogba, Romelu Lukaku, and a few others. And so therefore, you can understand why they went for him as manager.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was ultimately the choice that most of the United fans wanted. They were all backing Ole Gunnar Solskjær. What I would say is it not strange timing? Do you not think it would be better to leave it till the end of the season, bearing in mind that the players are playing for him at the moment? They've still got things to play for, as you say, the Champions League and the top four as well. Might they just get a little bit comfortable now?
Yeah, that is a point that sort of struck in my mind when I was thinking about whether they should have waited until the end of the season and maybe considered other options other than Solskjær. They're going through a tiny bit of a slump, aren't they? The first sort of real issues that they've had under Solskjær: lost to Arsenal in the league, lost to Wolves in the FA Cup, which was probably their best chance of silverware before they were beaten at Molineux. And as you say, some of the players maybe will feel a little bit comfortable now, knowing Solskjær, knowing what he's all about. And maybe looking away from Solskjær, they could have picked up Mauricio Pochettino at the end of the season. He's made a few noises suggesting he's taken Tottenham as far as he can. We'll never know whether, if they'd waited until the end of the season, whether they could have got him. But there were other options, I feel, for Manchester United if they'd have waited.
Yeah, I suppose it's a difficult one, isn't it? You give Solskjær the job. He does well as an interim boss. Probably not thinking you were going to give him it on a permanent basis, and there was almost no other choice in the end, bearing in mind the pressure from the fans and also from the players, who seemed delighted with the selection as well. Moving on to their City rivals, Manchester City, who of course can go back to the top of the table, albeit maybe temporarily, if they beat Fulham in Saturday's early game in the Premier League. And the big news coming out of City this week is that Fernandinho and Kevin De Bruyne are both back fit, as was predicted by Pep Guardiola prior to the international break. Two massive players to have coming back at a big stage of the season.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd be saying it, but the news that Fernandinho is coming back is probably bigger than Kevin De Bruyne, given how that they've performed without Fernandinho this season. The times when they've had slumps is when the Brazilian's not been in the side, whereas for De Bruyne, it's been such a stop-start season for him. It's been so frustrating, hasn't it? He missed the start of the season through injury, came back, picked up another injury, has just started to get a few games under his belt and then had problems again. So they've managed to cope admirably without him, but Fernandinho is the one that makes the big difference, I think.
Yeah, he does. He certainly gives them that stability in the middle of the park. City, you can't see them getting anything other than 3 points at Fulham. I think it's 7 games that they've played against Fulham in the top flight, and they've won all 7 of those as well. Can't see anything other than a victory.
No, they could have put out the under-18s, I think, and probably beaten this Fulham team the way they're going right now. Scott Parker has been handed a very difficult start to life as Fulham's interim manager until the end of the season. They just cannot stop losing, can they? They've lost all 3 matches under Parker. They just can't stop conceding goals as well, and you'd expect somebody like a Sergio Aguero to fill his boots.
Yeah, it does look like it might be a case of one-way traffic at Craven Cottage. Is a game as well that Fulham really need to win if they're going to have any chance of surviving in the Premier League this season, but it looks unlikely. One other big story to tell you about as well is regarding Chelsea, because Callum Hudson-Odoi, of course, has been at the centre of speculation regarding his future for some time. In January, Chelsea turned down 3 bids from Bayern Munich for the England youngster. He made his international senior debut in midweek for England in the Euro 2020 qualifiers. He's blatantly a player who we all think has a future, a really bright future, Chris, ahead of him. Chelsea have had a few question marks as to whether they will allow him to go, maybe out on loan to get some regular action, but it looks like Maurizio Sarri's standing firm on this.
Yeah, he says he's not going to leave at the end of the season, and that will probably be a similar story for most of the players at the club if this transfer ban does come into effect. But Hudson-Odoi is the interesting one, as you say, because of the fact that he's still not started a Premier League game for Chelsea this season. It will be interesting to see whether Sarri bows to this public pressure that he's under now to put Hudson-Odoi in the team. Chelsea fans have been clamouring for it for a couple of months now. Now he's been on the international scene. There's even more pressure on Sarri to put him in that side. The other thing is, if you don't put him in the team, surely he's going to want to leave. So I think Sarri is going to have to give something along the line when it comes to Hudson-Odoi in his game time.
Well, it's a really awkward situation for Chelsea at the moment because they have this potential transfer ban, of course, hanging over them at the moment. There's a decent chance that both Pedro and Willian might leave at the end of the season. They're out of contract. Speculation about Hazard's future as well. Personally, I don't think they can afford to let Hudson-Odoi go. It was the one shining light, really, in terms of the Chelsea fans, to have a young English player coming through the ranks and a one of high quality as well to potentially replace Hazard and the other stars, of course, that might move on in the summer. So I do think it is vitally important that Chelsea keep a hold of him. But there's also a chance there for some of the other Chelsea youngsters. When we look at Ruben Loftus-Cheek, he might well get a chance because of this transfer ban. So in theory, on the face of it, yes, it does look like a worrying concern for the Chelsea hierarchy, this ban. But actually, it might mean that they have to look to those young stars who have been out on loan, and that might work out to be the best thing for them.
Yeah, there were some interesting comments from Andreas Christensen during the week saying that Chelsea are not planning to sell anybody, but you feel like they might have to shift a few players on due to the fact that some are running out of contract and they can't afford to take that financial hit. And therefore, as you say, that will open the door to some of the youngsters or some of the players who have been out on loan. You forget they've got a raft of players out on loan, Chelsea, right now. It could well lead to some of those coming back into the team and featuring more regularly. You'd look for somebody, first off, like Hudson-Odoi, but secondly behind him is Ruben Loftus-Cheek to get more game time. Another England international who hardly starts for Chelsea. Surely those two are the ones that Chelsea should be looking to, not considering options to sell them.
Yeah, and finally, just a quick word on the big Premier League game of the weekend. Sunday afternoon at Anfield, Liverpool against Tottenham. As things stand going into the weekend, it's first against third. There's been a bit of a downward spiral for Tottenham recently. They've not won any of the last 4 games in the Premier League, but maybe that feel-good factor's coming back with the stadium now being open, getting players back from injury. But they go to a ground where they've not got a good recent record, and Liverpool looks to have found their feet after that stutter as well.
Yeah, Liverpool looking very strong at Anfield, not been beaten there all season. And as you say, Spurs have got 1 win since 1994 in the Premier League at Anfield. So it is a bit of a bogey ground as far as they are concerned. And they've got injury problems as well. No Eric Dyer, no Harry Winks, probably no Serge Aurier in the middle of the park. It looks like it's going to be another home win for Liverpool and another step towards, well, finishing neck and neck, I should say, with Manchester City in the title race. For Spurs, they've still got the Champions League to think of. Perhaps that's the priority now. Just keep picking up points where they can in the Premier League to keep that top 4 position intact as well.
In terms of the Liverpool team news, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain not yet ready to return as yet. Jurgen Klopp is almost treading on eggshells in terms of what he does with Oxlade-Chamberlain. He doesn't want a reaction to that long-term injury problem, so he won't feature. Joe Gomez not yet ready to return, but everybody else seems to be fully fit. And Mo Salah has had a rare break from international duty this week, something which Jurgen Klopp believes could be crucial at this stage of the season. That is your roundup of today's big news in the Premier League, and don't forget to join us again for tomorrow for the Daily Update.